She didn't even turn all the way, just enough for her perfume to drift back to me, something faintly floral and clean, like a memory I couldn't quite place. Her voice came low, steady, almost teasing. Don't just stand there. And somehow, it wasn't a command. It was a test. The sound of her words hung in the air, mixing with the hum of the ceiling fan and the soft rain against the windows. I froze, caught between wanting to move closer and not wanting to ruin the stillness that surrounded her. She was standing by the old easel, sleeves rolled up, light from the lamp spilling across her bare forearms. Yoonhee. I hadn't said her name in years, not since I'd been one of her students. Back then, I'd memorized the way her hair fell forward when she painted, how she'd brush it aside with a careless flick, leaving faint smudges of color on her cheek. Now, years later, she was exactly the same. And not at all. Her hair was shorter, darker. There were tiny lines at the corners of her mouth that made her look even more beautiful. Like she'd lived enough to be both certain and unsure at once. You still hesitate, she said, not looking at me. You always did. I'm not. I started, but my voice broke the quiet too sharply. I softened it. I'm not hesitating. She smiled faintly. Then come here. I stepped closer, my shoes tapping the wooden floor. She didn't move away. The distance between us tightened breath to breath. Her hand reached out to steady the canvas, and her fingers brushed mine, lightly, deliberately. It wasn't a touch that asked for anything. It just existed, like a pulse under the skin. The scent of paint and rain mixed in the air, the warmth of her body faintly radiating toward me. She didn't have to look at me for me to feel her awareness, how her shoulders shifted slightly, how her breath hitched when I didn't step back. You still paint? She asked. Not much, I said. Nothing's felt right to paint. She turned then, slowly, fully. Her gaze found mine. There was nothing casual in it. Then you should have come sooner. It was said softly, but the words cut deep. My chest tightened, because I knew what she meant, and what she didn't. I didn't think I should. Her lips curved, just barely. You still think too much. I wanted to say something back, something real, something that might close the years between us. But the words died in my throat. The silence between us felt like a thread pulled too tight, one wrong move and it would snap. Her hand brushed past me again as she reached for a brush on the table. This time, her fingers lingered. I could feel the warmth of her touch even after she pulled away. Some people, she said, eyes lowered, spend their whole lives waiting for the right moment. And? I asked, though my voice sounded smaller than I meant it to. Her lips parted as if to answer, but then, a sound broke through. The front door creaked open. Her eyes flicked toward it, the briefest flash of panic crossing her face before she smoothed it away. Stay quiet, she whispered. Then she looked over her shoulder again, gaze sharp enough to steal my breath. Don't just stand there. The rain outside grew heavier, and for the first time, I wasn't sure if she was telling me to move closer, or to run. The sound of the front door faded down the hallway, someone leaving, not entering. Yoonhee exhaled, quiet but shaky, and the tension in her shoulders eased. It's just the cleaning lady, she murmured half to herself. She comes early sometimes. I nodded, though my pulse was still racing. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was the kind that knows too much, heavy with the past. I leaned against the edge of her table, careful not to disturb the brushes and half-finished canvases. You still keep this place, I said, looking around. Same smell, same light. Her lips curved, the kind of smile that wasn't sure if it belonged. I like things that don't change. I almost said you have. But then she turned to face me, and I forgot how to speak. The years between us sat there, invisible but loud. She was in her 40s now, but time had only made her more deliberate, more dangerous in her stillness. And me, I was old enough to know what I wanted, but too young to know what to do with it. She picked up a cup from the table, the coffee inside gone cold, and set it down again. You're different, Jun Seo. But not in the way I expected. How's that? You look at me differently. she said, her voice low, eyes not meeting mine. I swallowed. And how did I look before? Like you wanted to impress me. She finally glanced up. Now you just look. The air thickened. I didn't move closer, but it felt like I had. My hand brushed against the table beside hers, not touching, but close enough for the edge of my sleeve to graze her wrist. She didn't pull away. Outside, the rain had softened to a steady rhythm. It filled the room with a kind of safety that made truth easier. Or maybe more dangerous. You ever get lonely here? I asked quietly. Her breath caught. She looked at the half-finished canvas. Lonely isn't the right word. It's quieter than I expected. I waited. She didn't elaborate. You had someone, I said before I could stop myself. She nodded, slowly. Once. He wanted a family. I wanted something else. Her voice trailed off, and she dipped her brush into the paint, pretending to focus. I watched her hand tremble just slightly. What did you want? I asked. She looked up, eyes soft, guarded, but there was something behind them, something almost trembling. To feel alive again. The brush slipped from her fingers and rolled across the floor. I bent to pick it up. When I straightened, she was closer than before, standing just a breath away. Her hand reached out, maybe to take the brush, maybe for something else, and her fingers brushed my chest instead. The touch was brief, accidental by design. We didn't speak. Her gaze flicked to my mouth, then back to my eyes. Neither of us moved. And then she said quietly, You should go before it gets dark. But she didn't step back. And neither did I. The rain had stopped, leaving the air thick and damp, like the world had been holding its breath with us. Yoonhee turned back to the window, arms crossed, pretending not to notice how close I still was. You shouldn't stay, she said softly. People talk. They always do. Her reflection in the glass was calm, but her hand, gripping her sleeve, betrayed her. I don't care what they say, I murmured. She let out a faint, tired laugh. You will one day. The words should have cooled me, but instead they lit something. I stepped closer, just enough that I could see the small freckle behind her ear, the faint rise and fall of her breathing. Is that what stopped you before? I asked. What they'd say. Her gaze flicked up to meet mine in the glass. Don't do that. Do what? Sound like you understand. She turned then, fast enough that I almost bumped into her. The sudden closeness made everything else fade, the faint buzz of a phone, the ticking of the clock, even the air between us. For a heartbeat, we just looked at each other. My hand hovered near her arm, not quite touching. Her lips parted slightly, and her breath brushed against my chin. The phone on the table buzzed again, sharp, breaking the spell. She reached for it instantly, stepping back. Her voice shook when she spoke. It's the gallery manager. I have to. But her fingers fumbled with the screen, and I saw the message light up. Dinner tonight? You've been distant lately. A man's name underneath. She turned the phone over quickly, as if hiding it could erase it. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. The silence said everything. Her eyes darted up to me, half guilt, half something else. He's just someone from before. Before what? She hesitated. Before I saw you again. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. You don't have to explain. But she did anyway. I told myself I'd moved on. That what I felt before was. She stopped herself, pressing her lips together. Stupid. I stepped closer again. It wasn't stupid. Don't, she whispered. But she didn't move away. The lamp flickered slightly. The rain started again, faint and rhythmic. Every second stretched thin. I could feel her warmth, the faint tremor in her breath. My hand lifted, hesitant, uncertain, and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. She froze, then closed her eyes. Junasio. Her voice broke on my name, quiet but pleading. The space between us vanished. For a second, we both leaned in, neither brave enough to finish the distance. Then, footsteps in the hall. She jolted back, heart pounding, eyes wide. "Someone's here," she whispered. We both turned toward the doorway. The handle shifted slightly, then stilled. Whoever it was, they hadn't entered. The silence that followed was louder than anything. When she finally looked back at me, her voice was barely a breath. "You should go." But her hand stayed on my wrist, holding me there, not letting go. The next evening, I told myself I wouldn't go. And yet, as the sun sank, my feet found their way back to her door. Her studio light glowed through the thin curtains, soft, amber, and impossibly inviting. I hesitated, hand hovering above the doorframe, when I heard her voice from inside. "I knew you'd come." She was standing by the easel again, this time barefoot, her hair tied loosely, paint on her fingers. Something in her tone, calm, knowing, made my chest ache. "You left your sketchbook," she said. "Or maybe you just needed an excuse." I stepped in, the floorboards creaking beneath me. "Maybe both." Her lips curved faintly. "You're getting better at honesty." I wanted to say something clever, but all I could do was look at her, really look. The faint shadow under her eyes, the way her collar slipped slightly as she moved, the soft tremor of her hands when she reached for her cup. She caught me staring and laughed, a quiet, nervous sound that didn't reach her eyes. "Don't look at me like that, Junesio." "Like what?" "Like I'm someone you shouldn't want." I didn't answer. The space between us dissolved again. She stood so close I could feel her warmth, the faint scent of soap and turpentine clinging to her skin. My hand lifted, almost involuntarily, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. She didn't stop me. Her eyes fluttered shut, just for a second. "I tried to forget you," she whispered. "When you left, I told myself it was just admiration, just youth and imagination. But you—" Her voice trailed off. I could feel the tremor in her words, the ache in her restraint. I took a step closer until our breaths tangled. "And now?" She opened her eyes, glassy, uncertain, but bright with something raw. "Now it's not so simple." Silence. Every heartbeat felt like it might shatter the air. Her hand lifted, fingers grazing my shirt, then clutching it, faintly, as if testing her own courage. "I'm too old for this," she said, her voice breaking between confession and apology. "You don't sound sure." Her breath caught. "Don't make this harder." I smiled, small and pained. "You already did." For a long moment, neither of us moved. The world narrowed to her breath against my cheek, the faint brush of her hand at my chest, the quiet rhythm of two people trying not to fall. And then the sound, a soft knock at the door. We both froze. She didn't turn. Her voice came out as a whisper, trembling. "It's him." My stomach dropped. "The gallery manager?" She nodded, once. Her hand still gripped my shirt, eyes locked on mine, breath shaking. "Say something," I whispered. She did, so softly it barely reached me. "Don't leave." The knock came again, louder this time. Her eyes didn't move from mine. And then she whispered, "If you stay, everything changes." The knock at the door stopped. Then silence. Yoonhee stood frozen, one hand still clutching my shirt. I could hear the faint echo of footsteps fading down the hall. Whoever it was, he'd left. But she didn't move. Her breath trembled against my chest, her pulse fluttering beneath my fingertips. "You should have told me," I said quietly. She blinked. "Told you what?" "That you weren't alone." Her eyes darted away. "I didn't lie." "No," I said, voice low. "But you didn't tell the truth either." She stepped back, arms wrapping around herself. The light from the window fell across her bare shoulders, making her look fragile in a way I'd never seen. "It wasn't serious." "It's not." She stopped. "It was supposed to help me forget." "Forget what?" Her voice cracked. "You." The word hit harder than any confession. I stared at her, trying to read what was left behind those eyes, guilt, fear, something deeper that she didn't dare name. "Say it again," I whispered. She shook her head, retreating toward the table, fingers trembling as she reached for a brush that wasn't there. You don't understand, June Seo. You're young. You still think wanting someone is enough. And you think it isn't? She turned sharply, her voice rising for the first time. It ruins things. It ruined my marriage, my work, and now. She stopped. I stepped forward. Now what? Her lips parted, her breath uneven. Now I can't stop. The air between us went still, thick with the kind of truth you can't take back. I moved closer slowly, until her back met the wall. Her eyes lifted to mine, wide and unguarded. I shouldn't have said that, she whispered. Forget I can't. She swallowed hard, her throat moving. I could see her pulse racing under her skin. My hand lifted, hovering near her cheek, but I didn't touch her. Not yet. Tell me you don't feel it, I said. Look me in the eye and lie. Her lips trembled. You think this is simple, don't you? I think it's real. She exhaled sharply, a sound halfway between a sob and a laugh. You have no idea what this would cost me. I don't care. She finally looked up at me, eyes shining, breath uneven, and for the first time, she didn't hide. Then maybe that's the difference between us. I took a step back, the weight of her words sinking in. She brushed past me, fingertips grazing my arm, a soft electric touch that left me breathless. At the door, she paused. He knows, she said without turning. My stomach twisted. What? The gallery manager. He saw us yesterday. He called tonight to warn me. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He said if he tells the board I'll lose everything. Silence. Then she turned her head just enough for me to see her eyes, wet, fierce, and breaking all at once. So tell me, June Seo, she said. How far would you go for something you shouldn't want? The night felt heavier than the rain. The city outside was silent, the kind of silence that only happens after something breaks. Yoon-hee stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself, her reflection trembling faintly in the glass. I could still hear her words echoing in my head. He knows. You don't have to face this alone, I said, my voice barely a whisper. She shook her head slowly. You don't understand. This isn't just a scandal, June Seo. It's my life. My name. I stepped closer. And what about what's between us? Her shoulders tensed. It's a mistake that keeps breathing. Something in me cracked then, quiet, invisible, but real. You don't believe that. I want to. Her voice trembled, soft but sharp, like she was trying to convince herself. I reached out, fingers grazing her wrist. She flinched, but didn't pull away. The air between us pulsed, filled with everything we'd been refusing to say. Tell me you don't want me, I said quietly. She turned slowly, her eyes finding mine, wet, raw, alive. You think that's the problem? Her laugh came out broken. I want you so much I can't breathe. And that terrifies me. The confession hung in the air, fragile and unstoppable. I moved closer until the space between us was gone. Her back met the wall, and my hands hovered near her waist, not touching, but close enough that we both felt it. Her breath came shallow. If we do this, she said, there's no pretending it was nothing. I don't want to pretend anymore. For a heartbeat, nothing existed but the sound of our breathing, slow, uneven, tangled. She looked at me, eyes flicking between my lips and my eyes. You'll regret it, she whispered. I shook my head. Then let me. Her fingers trembled as they reached up, brushing the side of my face. The touch was careful, like she was memorizing it. Her thumb grazed the edge of my mouth, my breath caught. Then, she stopped. Her hand fell away. You'll survive this, she said softly. You're young. You still get to start over. I don't want to start over, I said. I just want you. She closed her eyes, tears gathering at the corners. That's exactly why I can't let you. Her voice broke. She took my hand and pressed it against her heart, warm, fast, trembling. Do you feel that? I nodded. Then remember it, she said. Because this is where it has to end. For a long second, we just stood there, our foreheads nearly touching, our breaths shared in one fragile rhythm. I wanted to speak, to stop her, but her hand covered my mouth gently. No words, she whispered. Just remember. Then she stepped away. The air between us felt colder instantly. And in that silence, something settled, not peace, not closure, but understanding. We had both chosen. Weeks passed before I saw her again. Not in the studio, not at the gallery. Just by chance, or maybe fate, on a quiet evening near the riverside, where the lights shimmered against the water like restless thoughts. Yoonhee was sitting on a bench, sketchbook on her lap, the wind brushing her hair across her face. She looked peaceful, until she saw me. Then, everything inside that calm expression cracked just slightly. You still come here? I asked, voice careful, testing the air. She smiled faintly. You used to sit 3 benches down. I moved up. That earned a quiet laugh, the kind that broke the distance we'd built. I sat beside her, not too close, not too far. Just enough for the silence to feel comfortable again. For a while neither of us spoke. The water rippled softly, and her hand rested against the bench between us. I could see the paint still caught in her fingernails, proof that she'd gone back to creating. That, at least, hadn't changed. Did you lose the gallery? I asked. She shook her head. No. He didn't tell them. A pause. He wanted me to owe him. I didn't. I nodded, a quiet kind of pride rising in my chest. You look different, she said. So do you. Her eyes softened. Maybe that's what happens when we stop running from what hurt. The wind carried her words away before I could answer. My hand inched toward hers, slow, unsure, until our fingers brushed. She didn't move away this time. Her fingers curled slightly, finding mine, a small, deliberate choice. I thought you said it had to end, I whispered. I did, she said. But endings change when people do. She turned to me, eyes steady now, voice soft but certain. I was afraid, June Seo. Of the years between us. Of what people would see. But all this time. She trailed off, squeezing my hand. I realized the only thing that ever scared me more was losing what we had. I looked at her, really looked, the lines near her eyes, the calm steadiness of her breath, the warmth radiating off her skin. It wasn't the rush I'd felt before. It was quieter now. Deeper. You didn't lose it, I said. Her lips curved into the smallest smile. Then don't let go. We sat there as the lights flickered across the river, our hands linked, her head gently leaning against my shoulder. No declarations, no promises, just 2 people finally still in the same place at the same time. Her breath warmed my neck, and I turned just enough to press a small kiss to her forehead. She sighed, soft, content, and the world outside felt distant. For the first time, there was no guilt, no fear, no hesitation. Just a quiet, imperfect kind of peace. And in that silence I knew, this wasn't the kind of love that burned fast. It was the kind that stayed. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?